My name is Leah Harrison, and I am 25 years old. I never thought coming home from my first successful business trip would end with finding my life packed in garbage bags. The black plastic bulged with my possessions, lined up like funeral monuments at our front gate. My mother stood there, arms crossed, my three siblings flanking her like soldiers. Their faces showed no warmth, only cold resolution. The smile I had worn since landing evaporated as Mom spoke those cutting words. "You are 25 now. It is time for you to get out." Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from. Hit like and subscribe to join me on this journey of family betrayal and unexpected strength. Growing up as the youngest of four children in our suburban Chicago home was never easy. My father passed away when I was just 7 years old, leaving my mother, Sandra, to raise us alone. My oldest brother, Jackson, was already 18, my sister, Natalie, was 16, and my brother, Kevin, was 14. While they had years of memories with Dad, I barely remembered his face without looking at photographs. After Dad died, Mom changed. The warm, laughing woman from my earliest memories hardened into someone who measured love by achievement and obedience. She worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat and reminded us daily of her sacrifices. "I gave up everything for you kids" became her mantra, usually followed by "the least you could do is." As the baby of the family, I received both the benefits and burdens of being last. Mom was financially more stable by the time I needed braces or college tuition, but the emotional toll of single parenthood had worn her down. She controlled every aspect of my life with iron determination, from my friends to my major in college. My siblings had all followed the paths she approved. Jackson became a surgeon, Natalie a corporate attorney, and Kevin a successful engineer. They married people Mom liked, bought homes in neighborhoods she approved of, and had children on the schedule she thought appropriate. They were her success stories, proof of her excellent parenting. Then there was me. I studied marketing instead of medicine or law, took a job at a startup rather than an established firm, and remained stubbornly single at 25. While I was not rebellious by most standards, in our family, I was the black sheep. "When will you get a real job?" Mom would ask over Sunday dinner. "Natalie was already making 6 figures at your age." Despite these tensions, I had chosen to live at home after college graduation. The decision was practical at first. My entry-level marketing position paid modestly, and Chicago housing prices were astronomical. Living with Mom allowed me to build savings and pay down my student loans more quickly. "You can stay as long as you need," Mom had said when I first moved back. Family supports family, but her support came with conditions, mostly unspoken but ever-present. I paid rent, contributed to groceries, and handled most household chores. I drove her to appointments, helped with technology problems, and listened to hours of complaints about neighbors, coworkers, and occasionally my siblings, though never when they were present. The dynamic with my siblings was equally complicated. To them, I was still the baby, someone whose opinions carried less weight. When family disagreements arose, they formed a united front with Mom, dismissing my perspective as immature or uninformed. "You will understand when you have more life experience," Jackson would say, despite the fact that I had lived on my own through 4 years of college and traveled internationally, experiences he had never had. The tension between independence and family obligation grew as I approached my mid-20s. Friends my age were living in apartments with roommates, dating freely, staying out late without texts demanding their whereabouts. I envied their freedom, but felt trapped by both financial reality and familial duty. Then came the opportunity that I thought might change everything. Our marketing firm landed a major client, and as the team member with the freshest ideas, I was chosen to present our campaign in New York. It was my first business trip, my first solo presentation to a major client, and potentially my first big career break. The presentation was scheduled for a Thursday, with meetings extending through Friday afternoon. I had spent weeks preparing, rehearsing until I could recite the pitch in my sleep. The night before my flight, Mom had seemed distracted during dinner, barely acknowledging my nervous excitement. "I will be back late Friday night," I reminded her as I washed dishes. "Fine," she said, not looking up from her phone. Jack and Natalie are coming over on Saturday with the kids. Make sure you're here to help. I promised I would be, swallowing my disappointment at her lack of enthusiasm. In my heart, I had hoped this professional milestone would finally earn her approval. If I could prove my career path was viable, perhaps she would see me as an adult rather than a disappointing child. The New York presentation exceeded all expectations. The clients loved our campaign, asking for only minor adjustments before approving the seven-figure budget. My boss had taken me to dinner afterward, discussing a potential promotion and raise if the project launched successfully. "You have real talent, Leah," he said. "I see a bright future for you with us." Those words warmed me more than the expensive wine we shared. For once, someone saw my potential rather than my shortcomings. I purchased small gifts for everyone during my limited free time, choosing a silk scarf for Mom, craft beers for my brothers, and a designer pen for my sister. Small tokens of success, peace offerings I hoped would bridge the gap between us. On the flight home, I imagined sharing my triumph at the family gathering the next day. Perhaps Jackson would finally stop asking when I planned to get a stable job. Maybe Natalie would cease forwarding me job postings for administrative positions at her law firm. Possibly Kevin would quit suggesting I pursue a master's degree to catch up to my peers. Above all, I fantasized about Mom's reaction. In my daydream, she smiled with pride, telling her friends about my accomplishment, finally seeing that I was making my own way, just on a different path than my siblings. Little did I know that my fantasy of family validation would shatter within minutes of my return, replaced by a nightmare I could never have anticipated. The Chicago afternoon greeted me with perfect spring weather as my rideshare pulled away from O'Hare International Airport. Sunshine warmed the city after weeks of rain, which I took as a good omen. The gifts I had purchased sat neatly in my carry-on bag, wrapped in tissue paper from the boutique near my hotel. My presentation materials were safely stored in my laptop bag, including the signed contract that would transform my department's budget and hopefully my career trajectory. I texted Mom that I had landed safely and was on my way home, but received no response. This was not entirely unusual, as she often missed texts when engaged with her gardening club or church activities. Still, a small twinge of unease flickered through me. Throughout my trip, communication had been minimal, with my check-in texts met with one-word responses or nothing at all. Halfway home, my phone rang with Jackson's number displayed on the screen. My oldest brother rarely called me directly, preferring to communicate through our family group chat or via Mom. "Hello," I answered, curiosity mixing with faint apprehension. "Where are you right now?" His tone was clipped, professional, the same voice he likely used with difficult patience. "In a car heading home from the airport. My flight landed early. Is everything okay?" A pause stretched between us, long enough to accelerate my heartbeat. "Mom wants to talk to you when you get home." "We all do." "About what? Is someone sick?" Alarm replaced confusion. "Just get home, Leah." He hung up without further explanation. My mind raced through possibilities. Had something happened to one of my nieces or nephews? Was Mom ill? Had a distant relative passed away? None of these scenarios explain the coldness in Jackson's voice or why we all needed to talk to me. I tried calling Natalie, then Kevin, but neither answered. I sent messages to our family group chat asking what was happening, but saw only read receipts, no responses. My mother's last message to me, sent the previous evening, now seemed ominous in retrospect. "We need to discuss some changes when you return." The driver noticed my agitation. "Everything all right, miss?" "Just family stuff," I replied, attempting a smile that felt more like a grimace. As we turned onto my street, the peaceful neighborhood seemed unchanged. Children played in front yards, couples walked dogs, and retirees tended to spring gardens. Our modest two-story home came into view, the blue siding and white trim as familiar as my own reflection. Then I saw them. Black garbage bags, at least a dozen, lined the driveway near the front gate. Four figures stood in the yard, their postures stiff and confrontational. I recognized them immediately. Mom in her gardening apron, Jackson in his casual weekend clothes, Natalie in one of her impeccable business casual outfits, despite it being Saturday, and Kevin in the university sweatshirt he favored on days off. You can stop here, I told the driver, my voice distant to my own ears. I paid quickly, gathered my luggage, and stepped out onto the sidewalk. The driver pulled away, leaving me exposed before my family's unified front. None of them moved to help with my bags. None of them smiled in greeting. What is going on? I asked, approaching slowly. What are all these bags? Mom stepped forward, her mouth set in a thin line. Your things are packed. It is time for you to find your own place. The world tilted beneath my feet. What? Why? We never discussed this. You are 25 years old, she continued, as if I had not spoken. All your siblings were on their own by 23. You have overstayed your welcome. Jackson nodded in agreement. It is time you learned responsibility. The irony of his statement might have made me laugh in different circumstances. I had been paying rent, handling household chores, working full-time, and advancing my career. By any reasonable definition, I was already responsible. This is insane, I said, looking from face to face, searching for any sign of warmth or explanation. I just got back from a business trip. I have nowhere to go. You should have planned better, Natalie interjected, checking her watch as if my homelessness was making her late for an appointment. We all managed to find apartments right after college. With parental co-signing and down payment assistance, I reminded her, anger beginning to cut through my shock. And significantly higher starting salaries in established professions. Excuses, Kevin said, shaking his head. You have had 3 years to figure this out. I turned to Mom, hoping to find some explanation in her expression. Why now? Why today, without any warning? I have been hinting for months that you should move on, she replied. You chose not to listen. Hinting is not the same as giving notice, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to remain calm. Normal people discuss major decisions. They do not pack someone's belongings while they are away and ambush them upon return. Do not raise your voice to your mother, Jackson warned, stepping closer. The absurdity of the situation struck me all at once. I was being lectured about respect while being treated with absolute disrespect. My family had waited until I was out of town to pack my possessions in garbage bags and evict me without warning or discussion. What is this really about? I asked, suddenly remembering conversations overheard between Mom and Natalie about property values in our neighborhood. Are you selling the house? A flicker of surprise crossed my mother's face before she composed herself. My financial decisions are none of your concern. They are if they involve making me homeless with no notice. You are not homeless, Natalie said with exaggerated patience. You have a job. Get an apartment like everyone else. Without references, without time to save for a security deposit, without warning? I looked at each of them in turn. Do you hear yourselves? Who treats family this way? We are doing this for your own good, Mom insisted. You need to stand on your own 2 feet. By cutting them out from under me, I countered. A neighbor walking his dog slowed as he passed, openly staring at our confrontation. My humiliation deepened at having this family betrayal witnessed by others. This is ridiculous, I said, lowering my voice. Let us go inside and discuss this like adults. There is nothing to discuss, Mom replied. The decision has been made. Without any input from me, the person most affected. Your input has been your continued failure to launch, Kevin said. We have all discussed it and agree this is necessary. That statement landed like a physical blow. They had discussed me, judged me, and determined my fate without my knowledge or participation. The gifts I had brought them suddenly felt like pathetic bribes for affection that had already been withdrawn. When did you pack all this? I asked, gesturing to the garbage bags. Yesterday, Mom answered. Jackson and Kevin helped. The timing was not coincidental. They had deliberately waited until I was away, unable to defend my space or my position in the family. And what am I supposed to do now? Where am I supposed to go tonight? You should have friends you can stay with, Natalie suggested, though her tone implied doubt that I had any. Or get a hotel, Jackson added. You just got back from New York. Surely you can afford a room for a few nights. They did not know that the company had paid for my New York accommodations or that my modest savings were earmarked for eventual moving costs that I had planned to discuss with Mom when the time was right. Can I at least come inside and sort through these bags? I doubt you knew what was important when you packed. Everything is there, Mom said firmly. Your room has been cleared. The finality of her statement made my stomach clench. They had erased me from the house while I was gone, as if I had never belonged there at all. White-hot anger surged through me, temporarily burning away the shock and hurt. "How dare you?" I said, my voice low and trembling. "How dare all of you stand there acting righteous while doing something so cruel?" "Dramatic as always," Natalie muttered. "Dramatic?" I laughed without humor. "You ambush me after a business trip, throw my possessions in garbage bags, and tell me I am homeless effective immediately. But I am the dramatic one." "We knew you would react this way," Jackson said. "This is why we did it while you were gone." "You mean why you waited until I was not here to defend myself?" "That is not responsible adult behavior. That is cowardly." Mom's face flushed with anger. "Do not speak to us that way after everything I have done for you." "What exactly have you done for me lately?" Mom charged me rent, made me handle most household chores, criticized my career choices, compared me unfavorably to my siblings at every opportunity. "You ungrateful little," she began. "Ungrateful?" I cut her off. "I have been nothing but grateful. I have thanked you, helped you, supported you emotionally and financially. I have swallowed every criticism, endured every comparison, and still showed up with love and respect." The facade of family unity began to crack as my mother turned to Jackson. "I told you she would make this difficult." "Make what difficult, exactly?" I pressed. "Why no? Why the urgency? Why the garbage bags instead of proper boxes? Why the audience?" I gestured to my siblings. Kevin shifted uncomfortably, the first sign that perhaps he was not fully committed to this plan. "Mom is selling the house," he admitted. "Kevin," Natalie hissed. "She deserves to know," he replied. The truth emerged in fragments as they argued among themselves. Mom had received an offer on the house significantly above market value. The buyers wanted immediate occupancy. Rather than discussing this with me, she had decided with my siblings that my portion of any inheritance or proceeds would be reduced to compensate for my extended stay at home. "So this is about money," I said, the pieces falling into place. "You are pushing me out to sell the house, and you do not want me to have a claim on my share." "You have not contributed to the mortgage," Natalie argued. "I have paid rent for 3 years," I countered. "Where did that money go if not toward household expenses?" "Your rent barely covered your food and utilities," Mom dismissed. "And what about Dad's will?" I asked. "He left the house to all of us." I may have been young when he died, but I remember the lawyer explaining that. Uncomfortable glances passed between them. They had hoped I would not remember or would not assert my legal rights. "You would see your own mother?" Jackson asked incredulously. "You would disinherit your own daughter?" I fired back. We had reached an impasse, standing in the front yard with neighbors pretending not to watch. 3 years of pent-up resentment boiled over as I finally said what I had swallowed for too long. "You have never respected my choices or seen me as an equal adult. You have used me as free labor, emotional support, and a convenient target for your disappointment. And now you discard me when it is financially convenient." No one denied these accusations. Their silence confirmed every insecurity I had harbored about my place in the family. In that moment of clarity, I made a decision that would alter the course of my life. I walked to my car, which thankfully had been parked on the street during my trip, and opened the trunk. "What are you doing?" Mom demanded. "Leaving," I replied simply. "Is that not what you want?" One by one, I loaded the garbage bags into my car, grateful that I drove a hatchback with folding rear seats. The bags contained my entire life: clothes, books, electronics, mementos, things packed without care or concern for their significance. When the car was full, I turned to face them one last time. They stood together, a unit from which I had always been subtly excluded. "You know, I just landed the biggest client in our firm's history. I was about to get promoted. I brought gifts for all of you to celebrate." I laughed softly at my own naivety. "I actually thought you would be proud of me." "Leah," Kevin began, a hint of regret in his voice. "No," I cut him off. "You have all made your position clear. I will not stay where I am not wanted or valued." To their visible surprise, I smiled, not from happiness, but from the sudden weightlessness of having nothing left to lose. "Goodbye," I said, getting into my car. "I hope the money is worth it." I drove away without looking back, tears blurring my vision as I navigated familiar streets that suddenly felt foreign. My phone began buzzing with messages, likely my family realizing the implications of their actions, but I ignored them. With no plan and nowhere to go, I called the only person I trusted completely, my college roommate, Zoe. Through choked sobs, I explained the situation. "Come here now," she said without hesitation. "You can stay as long as you need." Zoe lived in an apartment 30 minutes away with her boyfriend, Tyler. When I arrived, they helped unload my car without judgment or question, setting up their spare room as a temporary sanctuary. That first night was the lowest point. Curled on an unfamiliar bed, surrounded by garbage bags I could not bear to unpack, I cycled through shock, grief, and rage. My phone continued to buzz with messages, which Zoe eventually convinced me to read. They were as expected. Mom insisted I was overreacting. Jackson lectured me about responsibility. Natalie sent links to apartment listings well outside my budget. Kevin alone expressed some regret about the method, though not the decision itself. "These people are toxic," Zoe declared after reading the messages. "You need space from all of them." "They are still my family," I said weakly. "Family does not treat each other this way," Tyler interjected. What they did was emotional abuse. Though the term felt extreme in the moment, the validation from outside perspectives helped me see the situation more clearly. What had happened was not normal. It was not my fault. And perhaps most importantly, I did not have to accept it. That night, I made two decisions. I would build a new life entirely independent from my family, and I would never again measure my worth through their approval. As I finally drifted to sleep in the early hours of morning, a strange sense of possibility flickered beneath the pain. For the first time in my adult life, I was truly free to define myself on my own terms. The first week after being forced out was a blur of practical challenges. Zoe and Tyler insisted I stay as long as needed, but I knew their one-bedroom apartment was too small for 3 adults long-term. Their generosity bought me time to find alternative housing without rushing into a bad situation. During lunch breaks at work, I scoured apartment listings, quickly discovering that Chicago's rental market was even more competitive than I had feared. Most places required proof of income 3 times the monthly rent, perfect credit, first and last month's rent, plus security deposit and landlord references. I did not have those. My modest savings, which had seemed substantial when living at home, barely covered the upfront costs of securing housing. After 10 days of searching, I found a tiny studio apartment in a less desirable neighborhood with a landlord willing to accept a larger security deposit in lieu of rental history. The apartment was nothing like the comfortable home I had left. Paint peeled in corners, the appliances were outdated, and strange noises filtered through thin walls at all hours. But it was mine, a space where no one could pack my belongings or question my choices. Moving in highlighted how little I actually owned. My family had packed my personal possessions, but none of the household items necessary for independent living. I had no dishes, towels, cleaning supplies, or furniture beyond my bedroom set. "We will have a housewarming," Zoe declared, helping me unpack my clothes into the apartment's single closet. "Everyone brings something useful instead of decorative crap." True to her word, she organized a small gathering of college friends and work acquaintances. They arrived bearing secondhand furniture, kitchen essentials, and home goods. By evening's end, my apartment had transformed from an empty shell into a basic, but functional living space. "It is not much," I apologized as we sat on mismatched chairs, eating pizza off paper plates. "It is a beginning," my friend Amber corrected. "And you did it without their help." Financial reality hit hard that first month. After paying rent, utilities, grocery bills, and transportation costs, my previously adequate salary left almost nothing for savings or emergencies. I created spreadsheets tracking every expense, meal planned meticulously, and learned which grocery stores offered the best prices on essentials. Work became my anchor and salvation. The Monday after being forced out, I arrived early at the office, threw myself into finalizing the New York client's campaign, and channeled all my emotional turmoil into creative energy. My boss noticed. "You have been putting in serious hours," he commented 2 weeks later. The New York presentation was excellent, and your follow-up has been impeccable. Thank you, I replied simply, not mentioning the personal chaos behind my professional dedication. We are restructuring the team, he continued. I would like you to lead the digital marketing division. It comes with a 15% raise and more responsibility. The promotion could not have come at a better time. The additional income would not make me wealthy, but it would ease the constant financial anxiety of solo living. More importantly, it validated my career path, the very one my family had dismissed as inadequate. While my professional life flourished, I struggled emotionally. Nightmares about homelessness disrupted my sleep. Unexpected sounds in my new building triggered panic responses. Trust issues colored my interactions with coworkers and friends. You should talk to someone professional, Zoe suggested during one of our weekly coffee meetups. Therapy is expensive, I countered. So is the emotional toll of trauma, she replied. Your new job has health insurance, right? She helped me navigate the insurance portal to find therapists who accepted my coverage. The woman I ultimately chose specialized in family estrangement and adult children of controlling parents. Our first session opened floodgates I had not realized were holding back an ocean of hurt. What your family did was not normal or acceptable, my therapist affirmed. Evicting someone without notice is legally questionable, even with family. Doing it while you were away shows premeditation and a fundamental lack of respect. Weekly therapy sessions helped me recognize patterns of emotional manipulation that had defined my family relationships. I learned about concepts like scapegoating, golden children, and conditional love. Slowly, I began rebuilding my sense of self-worth separate from family approval. Practical skills became another focus of my new independence. I had never needed to handle certain aspects of adult life while living at home. Now I taught myself basic plumbing, how to jumpstart a car, simple cooking techniques, and home repairs. Each new skill felt like a tiny victory, proof that I could survive and even thrive on my own. 3 months after moving out, I encountered my brother Kevin at a coffee shop downtown. The meeting was accidental, uncomfortable, and revealing. You look good, he said awkwardly after we had both frozen in recognition. How are you? I am doing well, I replied truthfully. Working a lot. I got promoted. That is great. He hesitated. Mom has been asking about you. Has she? Strange way of showing concern, cutting off all contact. You cut off contact, he corrected. You stopped answering messages after being thrown out with no notice. Yes, I did. We stood in uncomfortable silence, holding coffee cups like shields. She wants you to come to Sunday dinner, he finally said. To talk things through. On what terms? What do you mean? Does she acknowledge what she did was wrong? Is she apologizing, or does she expect me to pretend nothing happened and resume the same dysfunctional relationship? His expression answered my questions. There would be no acknowledgement, no apology, no change. I cannot do that, Kevin. I am not the same person who left 3 months ago. She is still your mother, he insisted. Yes, I agreed. And I am still her daughter. That did not stop her from treating me like I meant nothing. As we parted ways, he seemed troubled, perhaps seeing our family dynamic from a new perspective. That brief encounter strengthened my resolve to maintain boundaries, even as it reopened barely healed wounds. The path forward was neither straight nor easy. Some days, I felt empowered by my independence. Others, I crumbled under the weight of estrangement from my only family. But slowly, deliberately, I built a life that belonged wholly to me, furnished with my choices and governed by my values. It was not the life I had imagined, but it was becoming one I could be proud of. As 3 months stretched into 4 and then 5, a remarkable transformation began to take place. The constant anxiety that had characterized my first weeks of independence gradually subsided, replaced by growing confidence in my ability to handle whatever challenges arose. My promotion proved to be a turning point professionally. Leading the digital marketing division meant higher visibility within the company and direct client contact. I assembled a small but effective team, implemented new analytic strategies, and delivered consistent results that impressed both clients and executives. Your campaign increased engagement by 40%, our CEO noted during a quarterly review. That is impressive work, Leah. The acknowledgement, delivered in front of the entire leadership team, felt more validating than any family approval I had ever sought. My colleagues saw my value without the distorting lens of family history or comparison. With financial stability came practical improvements. I traded my unreliable used car for a newer model with a warranty. When my lease approached renewal, I found a nicer apartment in a safer neighborhood with more natural light and a small balcony where I could grow herbs and flowers. The process of furnishing my new space became an exercise in self-discovery. Free from my mother's aesthetic preferences and my siblings' opinions, I could finally explore my own taste. I discovered a love for mid-century modern design, bold colors, and functional spaces. Each piece I selected, whether new or secondhand, reflected my emerging identity. "This place feels like you," Zoe commented when she visited the newly decorated apartment. "Your old room never did." She was right. My childhood bedroom had remained frozen in adolescence, while my space at Mom's house had felt temporary despite 3 years of residency. This apartment, though rented, was the first home that truly expressed who I was becoming. Social connections expanded beyond my small circle of college friends. I joined a book club, volunteered at a local food bank, and accepted invitations to work events I would have previously avoided. Through these activities, I met people who knew me only as I was now, not as the family disappointment or the babied youngest sibling. Among these new acquaintances was Daniel, a graphic designer who collaborated with my marketing team on client projects. Our professional relationship evolved into friendship and eventually into cautious romance. Unlike previous relationships conducted under my mother's scrutinizing gaze, this connection developed at its own pace, free from external pressure or judgment. "Tell me about your family," Daniel asked during our third date. "That is complicated," I replied, then shared the condensed version of recent events. "They sound toxic," he responded straightforwardly. "I am sorry you experienced that." No defense of family loyalty, no suggestion that I must have done something to deserve such treatment, no pressure to reconcile, just simple validation of my experience and feelings. Daniel's healthy family relationships eventually provided a window into what functional family dynamics could look like. Sunday dinners at his parents' home showed me respectful disagreement, unconditional support, and genuine interest in each other's lives. The contrast with my own family was both painful and enlightening. My therapy sessions evolved from crisis management to deeper healing and personal growth. With professional guidance, I examined childhood patterns, recognized unhealthy coping mechanisms, and developed strategies for setting boundaries in all relationships. "You have made remarkable progress," my therapist observed after a particularly insightful session. "You are breaking generational patterns." The comment struck me deeply. Perhaps the most meaningful victory was not external success, but internal change, the ability to recognize and reject the dysfunctional dynamics that had shaped my family for generations. This psychological shift manifested in unexpected ways. I became more assertive at work, proposing bold campaigns and confidently defending my ideas. I developed clearer boundaries with friends, no longer agreeing to plans that drained my energy or violated my values. I pursued interests I had previously abandoned because they did not meet family approval, rediscovering my love for photography and creative writing. I also made the difficult decision to block all communication from my mother and older siblings. After months of texts ranging from guilt-inducing to openly hostile, I recognized that each interaction reset my emotional healing. Kevin remained the exception, as his messages had evolved from family pressure tactics to genuine, if awkward, attempts at independent connection. 5 months after being forced out, I attended a marketing conference where I unexpectedly reconnected with Mrs. Reynolds, my high school journalism teacher. She had always encouraged my writing and creative thinking when other adults focused solely on my academic performance relative to my siblings. "Leah Harrison, how wonderful to see you," she greeted me warmly. "Are you still in marketing?" Our conversation over coffee revealed that she had always seen potential in me that my family had missed or dismissed. Her belief in my abilities had been genuine rather than conditional, a rare experience in my formative years. "You always had a unique perspective," she told me. "I am not surprised you have found success on your own terms." That chance meeting inspired me to reach out to others who might be experiencing family alienation or struggling with independence. I started a blog sharing practical advice for young adults establishing themselves without family support, covering topics from budgeting to emotional resilience. The blog connected me to an online community of people with similar experiences. Comments and messages poured in from readers who found validation in my story and hope in my progress. "Your post about holiday coping strategies literally got me through Christmas," one reader wrote. "For the first time, I did not feel guilty about protecting my peace. Through helping others, I continued my own healing." The blog created space to process my experiences through writing, transformed painful memories into useful lessons, and surrounded me with a community who understood without explanation. As the 6-month mark of my forced independence approached, I realized that the family who had discarded me had unintentionally given me the greatest gift: the opportunity to discover my strength, reshape my identity, and build a life aligned with my authentic self. The journey had been painful, but the destination was proving worth every difficult step. Exactly 6 months after finding my belongings in garbage bags, my phone began buzzing with notifications. Messages from my mother flooded in first one, then 5, then dozens more throughout the day. By evening, I had received exactly 60 texts from her, ranging from accusations to pleas. "Where are you? Why won't you answer? After everything I've done for you. I need to talk to you. This is an emergency. Please call me." The final message, sent at 11:30 p.m., struck a different tone. "I made a mistake. I need your help." Against my therapist's advice and my own better judgment, I read them all. Something had clearly happened, something significant enough to break through my mother's pride and denial. I called Kevin the next morning, choosing the sibling who had shown at least minimal regret about how events had unfolded. "What is going on with Mom?" I asked when he answered. His heavy sigh carried through the phone. "She lost everything." The story emerged in fragments, each more unbelievable than the last. Mom had indeed sold the family home, receiving a substantial sum that should have secured her retirement. Instead of investing wisely, she had entrusted the entire amount to a financial advisor introduced by a church acquaintance. "It was a scam," Kevin explained. "The guy disappeared with her money and at least 10 other victims' savings." "That is terrible," I said, genuinely sympathetic despite our history. "But why contact me now? Where are Jackson and Natalie?" Another pause. "They are not speaking to her." "What? Why?" "She promised each of us a portion of the house proceeds. Jackson already put a deposit on a vacation property based on that promise. Natalie had planned a home renovation. And you?" "I was more cautious," he admitted. "But I am still angry. She made decisions without consulting any of us, then lost everything." The irony was not lost on me. My mother had excluded me from decisions about my own living situation and now felt the sting of similar treatment from her other children. "There is more," Kevin continued reluctantly. "She has nowhere to live. The new owners took possession of the house last week. She has been staying in a motel, but her funds are running out." "Where does she expect to go?" "She mentioned your new apartment." A cold wave of disbelief washed over me. After throwing me out without notice, my mother's plan was to move in with me. The audacity was breathtaking. "That is not happening," I said firmly. "I know," Kevin agreed, surprising me. "That would be unreasonable after everything. But she needs something, Leah. She is still our mother." The situation forced me to confront complex questions about obligation, forgiveness, and boundaries. What did I owe the woman who had raised me but also betrayed me? Could I help without sacrificing the healthy independence I had built? Was it possible to show compassion without enabling toxic patterns? After consulting with my therapist, I agreed to meet my mother at a coffee shop, a neutral location where I could leave if necessary. Daniel offered to wait nearby, providing both moral support and an escape plan if things became too intense. My mother looked diminished when she arrived, her confident posture replaced by a nervous hunch. The designer clothes and perfect makeup that had been her uniform were exchanged for casual wear and minimal cosmetics. She had aged years in months. "Thank you for coming," she began, hands clutching her coffee cup. "I did not think you would." "I almost did not," I replied honestly. We sat in uncomfortable silence, the weight of our history pressing down between us. "I lost everything," she finally said. "The house, the money, everything. Kevin told me. Jackson and Natalie will not speak to you. They say you betrayed them." I nodded, acknowledging her pain without accepting responsibility for it. "I need help, Leah." Her voice cracked. "I have nowhere to go." The request hung in the air, unspoken but clear. She expected me, the child she had discarded, to rescue her. 6 months earlier, I might have agreed immediately, desperate for her approval and a chance to prove my worth. Now I saw the situation with painful clarity. "Do you understand what you did to me?" I asked quietly. She blinked, clearly unprepared for this response. "I was trying to help you become independent. By throwing me out without warning, by packing my things in garbage bags while I was away, by ambushing me with the entire family as witnesses to my humiliation. I may have handled it poorly," she conceded, "but my intentions were good." "Your intentions?" I laughed without humor. "You sold the house without telling me. You planned to reduce my inheritance. You treated me like an inconvenience rather than your daughter." Tears filled her eyes. "I made mistakes." "Yes, I agreed." "You did. And now you are facing consequences, just as I had to face the consequences of your actions 6 months ago. So you will not help me." Indignation crept into her tone. "After everything I sacrificed raising you." I did not say that, I corrected her. "I am willing to help, but on my terms, not yours." I outlined the boundaries I had carefully considered with my therapist's guidance. I would help her find affordable senior housing and contribute a modest monthly amount toward her expenses. I would not allow her to move in with me, borrow money directly, or resume the controlling relationship of the past. "That is your idea of help?" she asked incredulously. "That is what I can offer while still respecting myself," I replied. "Take it or leave it." Our conversation continued for nearly 2 hours, cycling through accusations, justifications, tears, and tentative steps toward understanding. My mother struggled to accept that our relationship had fundamentally changed, that her authority had been permanently diminished by her own actions. "I never thought you would be so hard," she said at one point. "I never thought I would need to be," I countered. But here we are. By the end of our meeting, we had reached an uneasy agreement. I would research housing options and help with the application process. She would attend family therapy sessions with me as a condition of ongoing support. Neither of us was entirely satisfied, but it was a starting point that maintained my boundaries while acknowledging our connection. As we prepared to leave, she asked the question that revealed how little she had understood my journey. "When will things go back to normal between us?" I looked at her directly, with compassion but unwavering honesty. "They will not. That version of our relationship is gone. We might build something new, something healthier, but we cannot go backward." Her face fell, the reality of permanent change finally sinking in. In that moment, I felt an unexpected shift within myself. The anger that had fueled me for months did not disappear, but it loosened its grip on my heart. I could see my mother not as the all-powerful figure of my childhood, but as a flawed human whose poor choices had cost her dearly. That recognition did not excuse her actions or erase the harm she had caused. It simply allowed me to respond from a place of strength rather than reactive pain. I could offer appropriate help without sacrificing the healthy life I had built, a balance that would have been impossible 6 months earlier. As I walked away from the coffee shop, Daniel fell into step beside me. "How did it go?" "Exactly as hard as I expected," I replied. "But also necessary. Are you okay?" I considered the question carefully. "Not yet, but I will be." That evening, I received messages from both Jackson and Natalie for the first time in months. Word of my meeting with Mom had spread, along with my limited offer of assistance. Their texts contained no apologies for their role in my eviction, only thinly veiled attempts to gauge my mother's financial situation and my involvement in it. I left both messages unanswered, recognizing them as continuations of unhealthy patterns rather than genuine attempts at reconciliation. Some relationships could potentially heal with time and effort. Others might need to remain distant for my well-being. Learning to distinguish between them was part of my ongoing growth. The family crisis that had prompted 60 desperate messages had not provided a Hollywood reconciliation or neat resolution. Instead, it had offered something more valuable: confirmation that the boundaries I had established were necessary and the independent life I had built was worth protecting. In the weeks following our coffee shop confrontation, I helped my mother navigate the complex process of finding affordable senior housing. The assistance I provided was practical rather than financial, researching options, explaining application requirements, and occasionally driving her to appointments. Pine Meadows, the facility she eventually moved into, offered independent living apartments with optional supportive services. The modest studio unit was a significant downgrade from our family home, but it provided security, community, and a fresh start. "It is small," she commented during move-in day, surveying the compact kitchen and living area. "So was my first apartment," I reminded her gently. "You adapt." The parallel was not lost on her. For perhaps the first time, my mother was experiencing the challenges of starting over with limited resources, the very situation she had thrust upon me without warning or preparation. Our relationship remained complicated, but the enforced distance created space for gradual healing. The weekly therapy sessions, which she attended reluctantly at first, became a structured environment to address long-standing patterns and build healthier communication. "I never realized how my own upbringing affected my parenting," she admitted during one particularly breakthrough session. "My mother was even more controlling than I was." Understanding the origins of her behavior did not excuse it, but it provided context that helped me process my childhood experiences. Generational trauma had shaped our family dynamics in ways none of us had recognized or addressed. As promised, I contributed a modest monthly amount toward her expenses, carefully calculated to provide necessary support without sacrificing my own financial security. The arrangement was formalized through our therapist, establishing clear expectations and boundaries on both sides. My relationships with my siblings evolved along different paths. Kevin and I rebuilt a cautious connection, meeting occasionally for coffee and maintaining text communication. He apologized for his role in my eviction, an acknowledgement that opened the door to potential reconciliation. "I should have stood up for you," he said during one of our meetings. "I knew it was wrong." "Why didn't you?" I asked, not accusingly, but with genuine curiosity. "It was easier to go along," he admitted. "I have always done what Mom and Jackson thought best, even when I disagreed." His honesty revealed patterns I recognized from my own experience, the complex dynamics that had shaped all our choices and reactions. Through our conversations, we both gained insights into the family system that had constrained us in different ways. Jackson remained distant, occasionally sending impersonal holiday greetings or family announcements, but making no effort at meaningful connection. His pride prevented him from acknowledging any wrongdoing, and I no longer felt compelled to seek his approval or forgiveness. The most surprising development came from Natalie. 6 months after our mother's financial collapse, my sister experienced her own crisis when her husband announced he wanted a divorce. Suddenly single with 2 children and a lifestyle she could no longer maintain independently, she gained unexpected perspective on vulnerability and independence. "I never understood what it meant to have your life upended overnight," she confessed during an unexpected phone call. "I think I get it now." Our reconciliation was tentative and incomplete, but it opened possibilities I had not anticipated. We began meeting monthly for lunch, gradually rebuilding trust through small, consistent interactions rather than grand gestures or dramatic apologies. While family relationships slowly evolved, my professional life continued to flourish. 1 year after the promotion that had coincided with my forced independence, I was offered the position of Director of Marketing, overseeing all campaigns and client relationships. The new role came with a substantial salary increase, stock options, and enhanced benefits. For the first time, I felt truly financially secure, capable of building long-term stability rather than merely surviving month to month. With this security came the ability to pursue a dream I had privately harbored but never voiced to my family: homeownership. Working with a realtor, I found a small but charming condo in a diverse neighborhood with a reasonable commute to downtown. The day I received the keys, I stood alone in the empty living room, overwhelmed by the significance of the moment. This space was mine, purchased with my earnings, selected by my preferences, secured by my credit and reputation. No one could pack my belongings or demand I leave. No one could diminish this achievement or take it away. I hosted a housewarming party for the friends who had supported me through the darkest periods of the previous year. Zoe and Tyler, Daniel, work colleagues, therapy group members, and even Kevin attended, filling my new home with laughter and positive energy. "I propose a toast," Zoe announced, raising her glass to Leah, who turned garbage bags into a gorgeous home through sheer determination and courage. The reference to how my journey had begun prompted knowing smiles rather than painful memories. What had once been traumatic had transformed into an origin story of resilience and growth. As my external circumstances stabilized, I continued the internal work of healing and self-discovery. With my therapist's encouragement, I established a small scholarship fund for young adults aging out of foster care or leaving difficult family situations. The modest grants helped recipients with security deposits, professional clothing, or educational expenses, addressing practical needs often overlooked by larger programs. "You have turned your pain into purpose," my therapist observed when I shared feedback from the first scholarship recipients. That is true healing. The observation resonated deeply. The betrayal that had initially shattered my sense of security had ultimately revealed strengths I might never have discovered otherwise. Being forced to stand alone had taught me that I could not just survive, but thrive on my own terms. My relationship with my mother would never return to what it had been, nor would I want it to. The dynamics that had defined our earlier interaction were fundamentally unhealthy, rooted in control rather than respect. Instead, we were slowly building something new, a relationship between adults with clear boundaries and realistic expectations. During our last therapy session of the year, my mother said something that demonstrated how far we had both come. "I am proud of you," she stated simply. "Not because you are successful by conventional standards, though you are. I am proud of who you have become, how you have handled adversity, much of which I caused." The acknowledgement, offered without qualification or comparison to my siblings, was perhaps the most genuine approval she had ever expressed. It mattered to me, but in a different way than it once would have. Her validation was welcome, but no longer necessary for my sense of worth or identity. That evolution represented the most profound lesson of my journey. Love should not require perfect compliance. Achievement should not be a prerequisite for belonging, and family connections, while important, cannot define our entire sense of self. There are wounds that never completely heal, relationships that cannot be fully restored, and betrayals that permanently alter our understanding of trust and loyalty. Yet within those painful realities lie opportunities for growth that might otherwise remain undiscovered. Sometimes, being forced out of what feels like home leads us to where we truly belong, to the person we were meant to become. What began with garbage bags at a gate ended with the keys to my own front door, both literally and metaphorically. The journey between those points transformed not just my circumstances, but my fundamental understanding of family, independence, and self-worth. In losing what I thought I needed, I found what I truly deserved, a life defined by my choices rather than others' expectations. Have you ever experienced a moment when family betrayal ultimately led to unexpected strength? How did you rebuild your life after a relationship breakdown? Share your story in the comments below, and do not forget to like and subscribe if this resonated with you. Remember, sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the courage to create boundaries that protect your peace and the strength to build a life that truly reflects your worth.